Welcome to another episode of the Fan Zone podcast. Your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of the Fan Zone podcast. It is, of course, the preview show. It makes a return, and this time we are facing a trip on the road to Wycombe Wanderers, who will come out on top. Maybe this evening's episode will give you a little bit of an inclination as to that. This evening, no one better to join us than Dara, or the Wycombe DJ, as you may know him, if you keep your eyes on socials. But Dara, thanks for joining us.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on. I heard really good things about this podcast, and I know myself that you know your stuff, which is really refreshing. So I can't wait to get going.
Lovely. That's what we like to hear. And of course, thank you to you all in the live chat who have joined us already. It is a pleasure. Channel members, Pete, I can see you sneaking in, and especially warm welcome to you, my friend. But it is, of course, the preview show, which means this evening's episode is sponsored by B2B Workwear. And if you want to find out any more about them, then if you head over to our website, which is www.thefanzonepod.co.uk, you can do exactly that. But enough of the jibber jabber. Let's get stuck into this evening's preview show. Up first, it's, of course, our season so far. Right then, let's have a little look, shall we? Bolton Wanderers take on Wycombe Wanderers. It's not been plain sailing for Wycombe so far this season, I think it's fair to say. Recent form has left a little bit to be desired. You currently sit in 12th place, but talk to us then about this season. Are you where you expected to be? And how's the season panned out for you so far?
We all went into the season expecting to be fighting for promotion again. We had a busy summer, a lot of big signings, a busy January window last season as well. Lots of money spent, some brilliant players brought in. But there was always question marks over Mike Dodds. Now, there's no doubt Mike Dodds was a fantastic man manager. He helped develop some great young players like Jude Bellingham, who was spotted at a Wycombe friendly, which was bizarre. But we never saw any sort of tactical nous or ability from Dodds, and the football reflected that. It was possession heavy with a lot of the ball, a lot of nice passing, and then we would concede on the counter. And that was incredibly frustrating because we used to be the team that did that, take advantage of those teams and hit on the counter. So he was sacked. Harsh, he's a lovely man, but the right decision football-wise. It's hard because we've got Michael Duff came in. He said one of the big things we need to do is to work on our physicality. We were a good squad of technical players, some really good young players. We could do great stuff with the ball, but actually we suffered at the physical game, the winning the duels. And he's improved that, but we're still a bit too inconsistent. We don't have a good striker. We have depth, but it's maybe not good enough. And we're at the point where I think we can beat any team in this league, but we could also lose to any team in this league. Yous could beat us 5-0 on Saturday, and I'd go, yeah, I can see it happening. But we could beat Yous 5-0 on Saturday, and again, I could see that happen. So it's the inconsistency. We need to find that ability to just win games without losing them. We're pretty torrid away. So we need to find an ability to maybe grind out games the way we used to. But Michael Duff, he had that bounce where we were, I think, first or second best team in the league for 5 or 6, 7 games. That honeymoon period's ended. So now we're looking at where we actually are, and where we actually are is a mid-table League One side, which there's worse things to be, but we expected a lot better.
Yeah, you mentioned there that you can see yourself beating any team in this division, but also losing, and that seems to be the telltale story of a lot of League One sides this year. Not sure if that reflects a positive quality of the league or a poor one, but it does feel like there is a huge number. Well, all the teams in this division can take points off anyone, and every team can drop points to one another. What needs to change then for you heading into the rest of the season if that promotion sort of aim from last season is to be revived?
So it's interesting because we have the bones of a very, very good squad. I think we need a couple of additions in January, but we're not. I'm hoping we don't go mental and sign another 10. I think we signed something like 14 players last January, and trying to integrate all those players is absolutely impossible. I'm hoping we get maybe 3 or 4 targeted players. I think we need a striker. I think we need a winger. I think we need a centre back, and I think we need a defensive mid. And actually, one of your players is actually one of the ones I would be suggesting for us, in Aaron Morley, because he would have been fantastic for us as he was on loan last season. We also, I honestly think this season, and it's still early, it's only December, but I honestly think we need to take this season as almost a hit. Let the young players have game time and develop, sit in mid-table, and build towards next season, because there are some really good young players in this team, but obviously they're going to need game time to develop and get consistency. And at the moment, they're not consistent enough. That's understandable. Not every player is going to set the world on fire at 20 or 21, are they? Well, you do have one on loan from Arsenal, but I'm sure all your fans are aware of that. Not all of us can be so lucky with our loanees, but what can you do?
Dara, sorry to interrupt you. Good evening, everybody, by the way. I've not said a single thing yet, and we're, unlike me, 7 minutes in. I'm a bit perplexed, to be honest with you, with your expectations, and I think you're going to have to educate me a little bit, to be honest. Whilst you were speaking then, I was having a little look at your squad, and obviously the level of investment, which, if you compare to kind of the teams expected to be kind of in that top 3, top 4 conversation, it doesn't really compare. I'm a bit confused as to why you expect it to be higher than mid-table. Where does that expectation come from? I'm happy to be proven wrong, by the way. Obviously, I'm just keen to kind of understand kind of where that expectation, because from the outside looking in, I look at Wycombe and think, yes, you've had a couple of stints in the Championship. Yes, you've been competitive in League One, but when you look at the bigger picture, I think to be kind of just outside the playoffs or mid-table is probably about your kind of level. If correct me if I'm wrong, is that not fair to say?
Well, it is partly based on 2 seasons ago we got a billionaire owner, Mikel Lomdazzi. He's invested heavily.
I kind of knew that, and that's why I was keen to kind of look at the investment that you've made. And I know you've made a few loans, which I'm sure obviously cost you a couple of quid as well. But in terms of physical monies and transfers, there isn't a couple of undisclosed in there. But has the investment not been there? Is that why?
So Anders Hagelsjaer was 800k. Our previous record fee was 300k back in 2001. Okay. Magnus Vestergaard, who hasn't played a lot this season, was, I believe, 400 to 500k. But that's also reflected in the wages we're paying. Okay. Part of that comes from when we got promoted to the Championship, we were paying one of our strikers £200 a week. This squad we have is 4 or 5 times better than that squad. No, seriously, Gareth Ainsworth was buying cones and goalposts himself for training. That's how poor we were under the trust. We may do, but he paid the assistant manager out of his own pocket initially because the club couldn't afford to keep him. So this is a better squad than that. This is a better squad that played Sunderland in the playoff finals. I mean, we had Sam Vokes starting up front. He had a great season that year.
Yeah.
So it's based on that. We've competed for more with less. So now that we've got far more resources, we are expecting it to be spent with the same competency and with the same.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because, sorry to interrupt again, but I think when you was under Gareth Ainsworth, I think you kind of had that identity, didn't you, to kind of like punch above your weight a little bit, really. But I think obviously from, again, the outside looking in, the change of manager, kind of defaulting to Duff, who is kind of like, in a way, similar to the way that Gareth Ainsworth plays. Is that what you think you're missing? Is that why you've struggled a little bit, because you've not had that kind of Wycombe traditional identity? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that is, because especially even with Bloomfield, he tried to play good football, nice football, but he was still a link to old Wycombe. He was the Wycombe legend who played under Ainsworth for his entire career. I mean, we're talking about something like 499 league appearances for Wycombe, so he was still that continuity even with the new ownership. That's gone now. I think the only players that remain from Gareth Ainsworth are Josh Gowan, Jack Grimmer, and Fred Onyedinma played under Ainsworth, left to go to Luton, then came back to us. So it is that identity isn't missing. We aren't a team known for playing good football. You think of Wycombe, you think of long balls, defensive team, going to wind you up and piss you off, and then they're going to score. We're not that team anymore. And that is an issue because we were so good at it. We were one of the best in the EFL at grinding out results, making you annoyed, getting you frustrated, hitting you on the counter, hitting you at the corner, free kick, whatever it was. And now we don't have that. So you are correct. Maybe we were over ambitious, but it was reflected on what we knew money was being spent. Even if it was on free transfers, it was the wages we're giving these transfers. These are transfers we couldn't have made 2, 3, 4 years ago.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Are them fees, are them wages, are they comparable to the likes of Cardiff and ourselves and them, obviously them clubs that are naturally going to be in that kind of top 4 conversation? Are they comparable or not?
That's difficult to analyse because Wycombe don't release their financial figures fully. Right, so we don't even reveal contract lengths. So I can't tell you, you're paying 10 grand a month for Cosbury Dewberry and we're paying 3 grand a month for Sam Bell and left wing. We don't know, unfortunately. So I can't
true.
Tell you.
True. I just obviously, again, from the outside, I just think expectations they seem pretty high from where I'm sat, and I may be wrong with that, which is why we're trying to keen to kind of understand it. Really,
yeah, I understand that. Yeah, because maybe we were too ambitious. But at the end of the day, this time last season, we were second in the league. We were a couple of points off Birmingham, who spent 40 million. We were ahead of Wrexham, ahead of Charlton. And I think coming back to what you said earlier, this league is a more competitive league, but also I think the top teams are not as strong as they were last season. Yeah. You don't have the big bullies like Birmingham who will beat nearly every team pretty easily. You have some great teams, maybe Cardiff, for example, but everybody can beat everybody. So we were hoping to take advantage of that. Last season we were second when it was Wrexham and Birmingham. Now this season, why can't we do the same again? But new managers, plural, and some signings haven't worked. That happens when I think we've got something like 40 signings in the past 3 windows, which is just mental. Maybe we are asking a lot, but that's what we genuinely felt coming into the season.
I think that's a similar story with football clubs right across this division, especially the ones that have been quite turbulent through the leagues in that player rotation and that squad changes. It's something that Wanderers have had to deal with on numerous occasions. I've lost count of the number of times we've come on this podcast and talked about players bedding in and having time to gel. It seems to be a common occurrence, and it's difficult when you've got that much turbulence and rotation within the squad to sustain any kind of momentum in terms of promotion or whatever your ambitions might be for the season. Right. We'll hand over to our stats man for his segment, which of course we all look forward to. It is now time for Get Stats On. Forgot to press the button.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Get Stats On with the Stat Man. And today we're of course going to preview this weekend's game against Wycombe Wanderers. Christmas is here, but we do not stop, do we? Does the football stop? No. So do we stop? No. Right, let's get into it, shall we? Again, new setup. Let me know what you reckon in the live chat. But anyway, let's get on to the footy, shall we? So Wycombe, I've got 25 points. 9 points behind yourselves. And you're in 4th place. Now, how has that happened? After what appeared to be an absolutely dismal start to the season, you're in blooming 4th. So let's get up with it, eh? Let's be merry, quite literally, because it's Christmas. But anyway, Wycombe, they've not won any of the last 5 games in all competitions, but they have won. They have won just 1 of the last 5 league games. So the current form is not the best, is it? However, it's not going to be a walk in the park because they are much better at home than they are away from home, which of course is not great news for you because you're playing them at their place. They've played 10 games at home this season and 10 games away from home. 17 points at home and just 8 away. So that is quite the difference, is it not? They are much, much, much better at home. And to be fair, they actually lost their last home game 1-0 against Plymouth Argyle. But they look so much better. They were the better team by a country mile. And I'm sure our Wycombe representative will say that for free. But let's have a look at how they play, shall we? So, from the various statistical apps and such that I use, it seems they set up in a bit of a 4-2-3-1. But it's not a very structured 4-2-3-1, if you understand what I'm trying to say. Because the wingers, especially the right winger, which is usually Fred Onyedema, like to cut inside and come inside quite often, to the point where they're not really playing on the wing, they're playing more as an inside forward, inside winger, whatever you want to call them. And yeah, so that can be a little bit dangerous because, I mean, does your left back follow him? Does your left back follow the right winger if he pops up into central midfield? Because then he leaves a big gap if he does, but he leaves a spare man if he doesn't. So maybe, just maybe, don't criticise me for this one, it could be a game for 2 defensive midfielders once again. Simons and Big Heath could return to partner each other once again. It's been a while since they have, or, you know, they've got lots of options there who could do it. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you went for a slightly more defensive approach. And we can come on to that just a little bit later. But let's go into their stats, shall we? So they are underperforming their expected goals by 2. Don't call me out for expected goals. That just means not incredibly clinical. They're not exactly poor at shooting, but they don't score every single chance that they should. And who does, to be fair? So underperforming it by 2 is not exactly bad, but they have had the 4th most shots on target of any team. So it sort of tells you that maybe it's the shot quality that's not the best. But saying that, if your keeper makes a bit of an error, then you're in a bit of trouble. As always, to be fair. But moving more into their in-possession stuff and on possession. They do love a bit of possession. Can tell you that for free. So I think they're 4th in the league for average possession. Just behind yourselves in 2nd. So it could be quite interesting to see who dominates the ball. I reckon, or don't reckon, I would, if I was the Bolton manager, if I was Mr. Steven Schumacher, I would be going back to a bit more of a transitional style that we saw at the start of the season, which is, of course, a bit of a 4-4-2 mid-block without the ball. And I'd be playing, to be honest, I'd probably be playing Dolby and Marcus Force up front. Or Dolby and Burstow. There are options, of course. But I would like to see Dolby start this game, as I said last game. But I think he's earned a shot. And this could be his shot, let's put it that way. But, yeah, I wouldn't mind a bit of a 4-4-2 mid-block because... Here's another reason, the second highest in the league for long balls. So sitting a bit deeper might be the idea. Because if you're trying to play long, but you're sat deep, is there anywhere that long ball can go? No, not really. So, yeah, I think I would sit off a bit, let them have the ball, let them not be very clinical, and hit them on break. Because, my God, on the break, are you guys quality? But let's go into their defensive stats, shall we? Again, just to see if this is a viable option. It's all quite average for the statistical stuff. But one thing that did quite interest me is they are 23rd in League One, which means 2nd worst in the entire division for clearances per game. So, in other words, they cannot clear the lines to save the bacon. So, in other words, put it in the bleeding box and get numbers in the bleeding box, right? That's another reason Dolby should be playing. Because he is the definition of a penalty box striker. So if he can't score in this type of game, I don't know who can. We'll keep going. A set piece goal could definitely come because of that, by the way, the clearance stuff. Definitely. I can see Dolby scoring from a corner. Let's put it that way. But it may not happen. It may not happen. Their pressing stats suggest they don't really press too high. And if they do, it doesn't really work. So, and yeah, I'd say you probably could play it about in the middle of the park if you want, because their interception numbers aren't brilliant either. You could pass it around them, definitely. And you have done. You've played brilliant football this season when you've wanted to, but it's not always been consistent throughout the entire 90 minutes. So I'm just wondering if away from home, you don't park the bus. You just sit off, let them have it. And then when they try to break you down, then you pounce. And then you go. And you quickly counter with Cozy Dewberry and whoever's on the other wing, because that seems to change every game. And then Force and whoever's up front. There's a lot of options that you can do. And that is always a good thing. Always a good thing having options. But yes, I could waffle on about this for absolutely blooming ages, as I'm sure you can tell. So I'll let you enjoy the rest of the preview show, and I'm sure I'll see you for the review very soon. Goodbye.
There you have it. There are the Statman's thoughts. In terms of what you mentioned, I wanted to touch on specifically about formation. He mentioned that front line in particular can be quite fluid and it's not very rigid. How do you see that panning out? Is that being a consistent theme this season, or does that change?
So it's quite interesting. So what you see is Corley Woodrow has started up front, but he's not a line leading 9. What actually happens is he drops deeper, almost into the 10 role. And then you have Bell on the left-hand side and Fred on the right-hand side who go into the space. He's left. So you almost have 2 10s. And then you have the right winger and left winger cut inside, and the 2 fullbacks push high and wide. So you're then left with this really interesting thing of who do your centre-backs mark? Do they follow Woodrow down and leave tons of space for Bell or Fred? Do they stay put and just let Macaulay Woodrow have tons of space in the middle of the area, just outside the box normally? What do you do in that scenario? That it's attempting to get space for the 2 wingers, and our 2 wingers have scored the most goals in the team, so it has worked. The difficulty is when a team figures it out. And I think he said, for example, you have 2 defensive mids, drop deep, one marks the attacking mid, maybe Mullins, other marks the Woodrow. We don't score. When Bell or Fred score, we win games. When they don't score, we struggle. So that's a really interesting thing. So what you're going to see is maybe we lead the line with Bradley Fink tomorrow. He's 6'3", more of a typical poacher, gets in the box a bit like you said, Sam Dalby. But he hasn't been in favour. What you're likely to see tomorrow is Macaulay Woodrow up front. He's one of the reasons why we've failed to score 2 goals so far this season, and he's missed his chances a lot of the time. So he is correct. It is a bit more fluid, but there are ways to deal with it. And if you do deal with it, we will struggle to then create chances.
Speaking of scoring goals, it might seem like a ludicrous question to ask, but presumably you guys are missing Corney a lot, aren't you? Obviously went to QPR in the summer.
Yeah, that's a major miss. I mean, considering what was his first full season as a professional, and he was...
Yeah.
You can't replace a player of Kone's caliber. We don't have the money, we don't have the ability to do that. So what we should have tried to do is maybe bring in 2 or 3 players who can. And Sam Bell was a decent attempt at that. As I said, he's got 5 goals, I think, this season. Fred's got 5 goals on the right-hand side. But the striker then isn't living up to that. Maybe that's because of the tactical setup that Duff wants the striker to play as. Maybe he thinks that's the best way to get the best out of Woodrow. What I do know is it is probably likely we're going to be going in for a striker this winter, because we're not seeing the returns out of any of our strikers, and 2 of them are loanies anyway, so they're gone in the summer.
That heavy dependency on individuals or certain positions can play quite a lot of teams in League One. I know it's not been too much of an issue for us, but obviously it's heavily noticeable when Cozy Dewberry isn't having his sharpest game, that the team all of a sudden doesn't quite look as good. What's on your wish list then?
Sorry, Ben. I with that one, I do think just of the Bolton fans that are listening, this is my opinion. With the Mario, I think because Thierry Gale's been out for 2 months, I think there's been too much of a reliance upon a Mario to perform every week. I think now that Thierry Gale's back, he offers that. Well, I mean, teams have been doubling up, haven't they, on the Mario for the last few months, and the reason for that is because they've not had Thierry Gale to worry about as well, and they can't double up on both of them, can they? So I think as a result of that, we'll probably start to see Mario click back into gear a little bit more.
Yeah, you're right. I think one of the best examples of that was Wigan at home. They doubled up on a Mario, and Gale absolutely run them ragged. But as you've mentioned, when there is that dependency on a player, it can cause things to be a little bit skew-if and a little bit perhaps not as fluid as you would hope from the rest of the team. In terms of your January wish list, then you mentioned a striker. What kind of profile? Obviously, you're not going to get a Richard Kone replacement, but what kind of profile are you after?
Well, I've actually written an article for the Quartermen about this, and I recommended some players. And what I would look for is a box player, somebody who's going to sit in the box, get on the end of crosses, get on the end of through balls, and score. Alassane Jatta from Notts County is one I suggested. I think Sam Smith at Reading is another one I suggested. Somebody who can get on the end of chances and take him, because Bradley Fink, I think, can do that. But he's not been given game time for whatever reason. He's Swiss, he's 22, he's in a new league. It can take time to adapt. So there might be issues around that. Maybe he doesn't have the confidence. Look, there's 101 million things that could be the reason why he's not getting game time. What I would love is that goal line striker who can lead the line, get on the end of chances and take them. I think as well, one thing I'd be looking at is a defensive midfielder. And I'd be happy to take Morley off your hands if you're not playing him, because I think Xavier Simons has replaced him largely in your starting 11. Morley for us was just absolutely mint. We had Xavier Simons on loan as well. I thought he was good, but I think he's already got a red card for you guys this season. And he's a little bit I don't know if reckless is the word I use. He loves a challenge, doesn't he? And sometimes
Xavier Simons just kind of suits our style of play more. That's all it is, Dara. Myron Morley obviously is kind of he isn't kind of a 6. He's more of a 8, if you'd like to call that, or a 6.5 or an 8, or however you'd like to describe him, off the right, where we don't kind of play that kind of formation really. And as a result of that, it's cost Aaron Morley's place in the side. He has been tried as a 6. He's also been tried as a 10 as well. And on occasion, he has come on and played off the right as well. I think he started not long back as well off the right when we kind of tweaked the formation. But as a whole, we play kind of a 2 sitters, which is obviously damaged his time on the pitch, really.
Yeah. I think one of the comments says, if Morley became available, would you have him back? Absolutely. We are crying out for a player who can bring the ball out of defence, who can pass. That's what we saw at Wycombe. Whether that's the same Morley you guys have, maybe it's different tactical setups, it's different systems, different formation. We are crying out for a player who can do that.
I'd be happy for Aaron Morley personally to go back to Wycombe and flourish, if I'm being truthful. I want to see him do well. I want to see him play well. I want him to be happy. I want him to have game time, and I don't think any of them boxes are being ticked at the moment for us. And I think if he went back to Wycombe, you'd see the best of him again. And I'd like to think that obviously we won't be in this league too much longer with you, so you can have him and enjoy him. You can enjoy him a little bit. Do you know what I mean? So I'd be more than happy with that, to be honest.
I'd love to have him back. I think as well, one of our best players is Luke Leahy, but he's 33 and plays in the same position as Morley. How long have you got left in him? He could have another 5 years. He could have another 6 months. We don't know that. Look at Mo Salah at Liverpool. So I think it's really interesting because you guys are looking to, I think maybe you do have that slight quality of player. For example, Chris Joseph, he's one of your players now. Lovely lad. He was starting for us week in, week out, and for you guys, he's sitting on the bench now and not really getting games. I think he started for your 4-0 loss in the cup, and that was about it as far as I can tell. from my own research. So he's not really been playing for you guys, has he?
No, he's struggled to get in. I mean, Toll coming back from injury was a huge gift for us. He's been fantastic since he came back, and obviously you've got Johnston, who's been a cornerstone of Wanderers sides for even before Farino was here. He's been in the side for a long time. He knows the score, and so it's been difficult for anyone really. You know, the likes of Will Forrester, who's also been a bit of a fringe player, to get in and get their chance. But from what we've seen from Farino, we've been relatively impressed. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, just to add to that, Darry, I think another reason why Chris Farino isn't necessarily starting as much or as much game time as he might hope is that we'd no longer play with a 5 at the back or a 3 and wing backs. We play with a 4 at the back. Obviously, like Ben rightly said, you know, Johnson and Owen Toll. I mean, I think Owen Toll's our best defender personally, and he ain't budging him out at the starting 11 in my eyes, and seemingly in Stephen Schumacher's eyes either.
Yeah, that makes sense. Owen Toll, I remember actually watching him at Derry City before he joined you guys, and he's mint. He's an absolutely brilliant centre-back, and he'll probably play for you in the Championship, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think he's good enough for that level, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I absolutely believe so. So he seemed happy enough at Wycombe. Yeah, but it's hard, isn't it? Because would he start for us? We do have a lot of midfielders, but we don't actually have a lot of quality midfielders. That's the interesting dilemma, isn't it? But would you guys actually be willing to let Morley go, or would you want to keep him as a backup, or would it be a case of how
I think he's too good to be a backup, and I think that nature is probably a difficult one in the dressing room when you've got a player that is good enough to start football matches for teams in this league. It's difficult to keep that kind of player happy.
I think he's hit a bit of a ceiling with us, Dara, to be honest with you, in terms of his ability. I think Ben's right. He is probably too good to be on the bench, but in the same breath, like when you look at Ethan Erahan, you look at Simons, and you look at Josh Sheehan as a 3, he isn't getting in place of any of them 3 because they're all better suited and probably better footballers as well, you know, for the way in which we play. So it's a bit of both, Ben. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a shame because we've seen what he's capable of, and we've seen the technical ability you've got. But in that, you said before, in that 6th position, Josh Sheehan is the one that occupies the back line and keeps things ticking over. And then you've got Simmons and you've got Arahan, who can get a foot in and you know, mix things up a little bit. And I feel like you said, I don't think Morley is quite at the level that they are, and that's going to impact his game time and ultimately his confidence. And it's very, very difficult when you know that you are of a certain quality to come off the bench and keep having a consistent impact. And we've seen it not just under Schumacher, but under Everett as well. When he's had that time out of the team, he struggled then coming back in and making an impact.
And just to add quickly as well, before we move on to the next segment, obviously Carl Dempsey's come back from injury after 18 months as well, which is obviously another contributing factor because he plays a little bit deeper as well, and he is an option further forward. So again, that's probably not Aaron Morley down the pecking order a little bit more as well, because he's very much an industrious midfielder, as you probably know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Indeed. We'll hand on over to player swap then, and we'll find out who's changing sides. Right then, Dara, since as you are our guest, we'll hand over to you first. Who are you pinching from the Wanderers setup?
As much as we talked about Aaron Morley, I don't think I'm actually going to go with him because we do actually have a lot of defensive midfielders who can play the position. And I'm not going to go with Cosbury Dewberry either because that's the position of probably one of our best players in Fred Onyedema. I'm actually going to go for, and I think this might be a bit controversial, Mason Burstow up front. From what I've seen from him, he looks like the sort of striker that we would want to have. He's everything that I said that I think I'd want from a striker at Wycombe. Young, exciting. He's got 7 goals in the league so far. And our striker has 2 goals in the league. Those 5 goals would have won us games that we haven't won because of that. So I would go for Mason Burstow, and I think that'll be a controversial one we use.
I can see it. out of everyone in the squad, the two that probably come up the most are, well, it's Cozy Duba. He usually takes the first spot, but Mason Burstow is a second close. We've had a couple of shouts for Max Conway as well. But in terms of Burstow, we've seen recently he's had a little bit of a drop off, and that's probably more of a confidence thing, I think, than a talent thing, because we've seen in the first half of the season how good he's been. So I think that is a good option in terms of a profile of striker that you're looking for. He's very much capable of being in the box in the right place at the right time. He's got that striker's instinct, but he's also very good at coming and picking up the ball and making things happen and playing from deep. We've seen already some of the assists that he's had have been what you'd expect from one of your 10s. Cole,
yeah,
who are you choosing?
Yeah, of course. Mine's quite easy, really, to be honest. It probably comes as a bit of a surprise to you. Well, maybe not actually, direct, in fairness, but I would like somebody to compete with Teddy Sharman-Law. So Will Norris would be my choice, if I'm honest with you, the goalkeeper. Because, yeah, I'm not very confident with our backup goalkeeping options. And I think with Will Norris, you've got an experienced CFL goalkeeper that are in the right time of his career to be working closely with a 22-year-old England under-21 international, obviously in Teddy Sharman-Law. And I think that would work really well for us. If the worst was to happen to Teddy, you've got a very, very good backup goalkeeper in Will Norris. So that'd be my choice for the level anyway.
Yeah, I understand that. Norris actually didn't start our season, even as the starter. It was Mickey van Sass, a 21-year-old from the Netherlands. But Norris has came in, especially on the Duff now, and he hasn't looked out of place. I don't think he's a top-level League One goalkeeper, but you don't, as he said, you don't need that, do you? You've got Teddy Sharman-Law, who's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
As a backup, he probably would be one of the best backups in the league. He'd start for probably the majority of teams in the league. So
probably the kind of backup that I think we need, to be honest. So yeah. It's it will be my choice, absolutely.
I understand it. Wouldn't be my choice, but I understand it completely. Yeah.
Actually, one of my picks was one of those two. I was going to go with Mickey van Sass just for again a backup goalkeeper, but someone who can perhaps offer us a little bit more in the future once Teddy Sharman-Law returns to Chelsea. But the person
you played Football Manager too much, Ben. You've never seen that lad play once in your life, have you?
I haven't, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of Wycombe Wanderers this season or in any seasons gone by. The one that I actually ended up going with was similar to Cole in terms of needing some competition. It was Fred Onyedema. I think he's probably wouldn't be too happy coming and sitting on the bench for us. But I think Cozy Duby has played an unfathomably large number of minutes so far this season. We've seen him having to come in, well, not having to, but being chosen to start in cup competitions that, quite frankly, I don't think many Wanderers fans are that interested in. So that has been a cause for concern, because I think an injury to him would upset the apple cart a little bit. Don't think it's irreversible, but it would cause a little bit of an upset. So I think someone to compete with him would be a welcomed addition.
Yeah, completely get that. Well, first of all, you're talking to the right person about Football Manager. I'm the guy who does the stats for Wycombe Wanderers and Football Manager. So
yeah,
I'm actually looking at doing some changes now to players, which is interesting. I understand why you've chosen Fred. He's 5 goals, 2 assists, perfect right wing option to replace Cozy Adubury if he's injured or just needs to gain rest. The problem is Fred is a pure confidence player. He needs to start, maybe not the cup games, but nearly every league game to have that confidence to be able to play well. He's not a player. I think Luton Town found that out when he was with them in Championship. Even the Premier League, he played as a wing back for them. He's not a player you can play off the bench or as a option. He has to be the player. He has to be the guy in that position. So I understand it completely. I think it is a good choice, but I think he would struggle as the backup, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably very similar to Aaron Morley. He's a kind of player that needs game time and consistent minutes to really be at his best. Interesting as always. Right then, let's move on. It is our final section of the evening, and it is, of course, what's the score? So get your score predictions in the chat. Right then, let's have them in the chat. As I said, Dara, it's your turn again since you're the guest. Let's have your score prediction for Saturday, please.
Oh, see, I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Yous have, I think it's one of the best defenses in the league. It's the second best as far as I got on my notes. I think, 17 goals conceded. So it's not going to be a free-scoring game. I know I said it could be 5-0. It's going to be 1-0, 1-1, or something like that. My gut tells me you guys will get a 1-0 win, but I can't really say that against my own team, so I'm going to go with 1-1. I think a draw at home would have been a better team, so I think we could definitely get a 1-1 draw. It would be a victory for us after this period of poor form, get a point against a good team and hope to use that as a bouncing pad to try and get some momentum in the future.
Yeah, Colin, what are your thoughts?
I'm trying to move away from our historical record with Michael Duff, be it when he was at Barnsley, and he always seemed to be able to compete quite well with Ian Evatt. But this is not an Ian Evatt side. This is Stephen Schumacher side. This is Stephen Schumacher side with better players, better organised, defensively got a better structure. Been able to manage the game as well, both in and out of possession, and not stubborn enough not to change the way he plays for other teams, and he's shown that this season. So I think we'll get the win. I think it'll be difficult. I think we'll probably just be a case of scoring goals at the right time in this one. Maybe one just before half time or something like that, and then maybe another one, with 20 minutes to go or whatever. So I'm going to go for a 2-0, but I do think it'll be a tight 2-0 if such a thing.
Yeah, I am in complete agreement. The only difference I would say is that I think Wycombe will have enough to get a goal. I don't think it'll be enough to get points from it. I think we'll win 2-1, but as you said, I think it'll be a contested game. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I'll be very, very surprised if it is. I think our away record is the only thing that concerns me, and albeit that has improved recently in the league, especially with the likes of away performances against some of the better teams in this division that have not been perfect, but have been competent, and we've seen that game management, Bradford to name one.
With our record away from home, we've drawn too many games, essentially. That's been the problem, Dara. It's not been that bad, to be honest, in terms of results, in terms of losses. We've only lost 3 games this season away from home. We've drawn an awful lot as well. But I think we've turned a bit of a corner, Ben, with that, in all honesty. So yeah.
You're right. I think if the games that you look at as the biggest losses for us were Northampton and Burton, both of which were away from home. If we'd have won both of those games, then there's no way on earth we'd be talking about our away record, because it'd been almost flawless. And that's the nature of where we're at in this stage of the season. It's a couple of games and you're painting a completely different picture. And I do think we've turned a corner. I'm hopeful that we've turned a corner, and I think it'll be a 2-1 Wanderers win come Saturday. Are you going, Colin?
Leslie's asked if I'm going. I'm not going, actually. This is the last Christmas I've got with my missus and my little boy before last Christmas. What am I about? Last day before Christmas I've got with them both, so I've got stuff to do. So, yeah, I won't be going to that one, unfortunately, but I'll be going to Donny and Wimbledon, I think, the next 2. So, yeah.
There you have it. Right then, Dara, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate you coming and having a chat on the Fanzone podcast preview show.
No, of course. Thank you for having me on, lads. Brilliant experience, so thank you, lads.
No,
Cheers,
you're very
Dara.
welcome. And if you want to find out any more about Dara or find out what he's up to, then if you head to the link in the description, you'll find a link to his Twitter and you can go and do exactly that. But until the next time you've been watching the Fan Zone podcast, it is the preview show sponsored by B2B Workwear. Take care, and we'll see you very soon for a post-match reaction show.
What are you whites?
Yeah, unreal. Boys are